Okay, here are the notes for 3.5. So I just have a quick reminder for you for number one, the slope formula. So remember, this is the formula that we use to find the slope between any 2 points, and we would call them x1, y1, x2, y2. And the slope formula that we use is m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So now let's talk about the forms of the line. Now, two of them you have had. You've had slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And remember, m stands for the slope, and b stands for the y-intercept. We've skipped a for a minute. Our general or standard form is, remember, ax plus by equals c. So your x and your y terms are on one side. Now, a couple of things we didn't talk about, but for in standard form, you don't want any fractions in standard form. So if you do end up with fractions, you would just simply multiply through by the lowest common denominator to eliminate them. Also, you don't want a negative a, so no negative a. In other words, you don't want a negative sign sticking out here in front. And obviously, to get rid of that, you would just take and you could multiply the whole equation through by -1. So that's our general or standard form. Something else I wanted to tell you is, you know how in the last section, we automatically, to find the slope, changed our equation to slope-intercept form. So there's a little shortcut that I want to tell you about, and that is, as long as the equation is in standard form or general form, so it looks like this, then you can find the slope by taking negative, and actually this is wrong. Great. The slope would be negative a over b. So get rid of that. So whatever this is, you could take negative a and divide it by b, and that would give you the slope of the line. You don't have to change it to slope-intercept form. So I'm going to show you in an example how to do that. And then for our form of a line A, one that we haven't talked about yet is point-slope form. It happens to be my favorite form of the line, and that is y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity x minus x1. So the x1 and the y1 are any point that lie on the line, and the m still stands for the slope. And we're going to use that form of a line a lot in these notes, so you'll have memorized that form of a line and you won't even realize it. Okay, so here's a couple of things you need to know. So in this section, first of all, we're going to be coming up with the equations of the lines. In other words, you're going to be given information, and then you're going to have to come up with the equation of the line. And you'll be asked for the equation in either of the three forms that we've just talked about: point-slope form, slope-intercept form, or standard form. Okay, so whenever you're looking for the equation of a line, you need to know two things. You cannot find the equation of a line unless you know these two things. You need to know the slope of the line, and you need to know a point that lies on the line. The point could be any point, but then you also need to know the slope. If you know a slope and a point, you'll always be able to find the equation of the line in any form. So let's look at number one. We're going to practice doing all of these things. Write the equation in point-slope form of the line that passes through these 2 points, -5, 2, and 1, -1. Now remember, what were the two things that I told you you had to be able to, you had to know? One of them is a point. Well, we have 2 points, so we have more than we need in that case, but we also need the slope. So to find the slope, we need to use our slope formula, which I reminded you up above of, but there it is again. We're given 2 points. So let's go ahead and let's find the slope. So y2 is -1 minus y1 is 2 over x2 is 1 minus x1 is -5. So that's going to be -3 over 6. Always reduce your slope. So that's going to be 1/2. So now we know the slope. So you're always going to go to point slope form first. And in this case, that's all they're asking for. So to go to point slope form, you need the slope and you need a point. Only one, and it doesn't matter which one you use. It doesn't matter at all. So for example, I'm going to use this point right here. So my point slope form would be y minus the y of my point, that's y1, so that's 2, is equal to the slope, which is -1/2, times x minus the x of my point, which is -5. And of course, we can go ahead and clean that up a little bit by making it y minus 2 equals -1/2, and this would be x plus 5. That would be the point slope form of the line. And because I'm given 2 points, there would actually be 2 different point slope forms that I could come up with there, depending on which point I used. So now, what happens if in number 2, it says write the equation, but this time we're going to slope-intercept form of the line that passes through these 2 points. So now again, remember what I said, no matter what form you're going to, you need 2 things. You need a point, which we have a bonus here. We're going to choose one of them, and you need the slope. So just like we did up above, and why don't you pause the video and go ahead and find the slope on your own just to make sure you're okay. But that's the first thing that we're going to have to find here is we're going to have to find the slope. So pause the video, you find the slope, and I will also find the slope, and we'll make sure that we match. So the slope would be -2 minus 3 over 4 minus -1. That's the difference in y's over the difference in the x's. So the top would be -5 over +5. In this case, the slope would be -1. Hopefully that's what you got. So now, I mentioned it in number 1, and I'm going to say it again. You were not going to go directly to slope-intercept form. We're first going to go to point slope form and then change that using algebra into slope-intercept form. So, point slope form, we get to choose either one of these points we want to use. Why don't we go ahead and choose this one? And here we go. It would be y minus the y of the point is equal to the slope times x minus the x of the point. And of course, you know that minus a negative is plus a positive. So again, this is point slope form, but we want to now change that to slope intercept form. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use some algebra and get the y alone on one side. So why don't we go ahead and distribute the right-hand side first. So that's going to be -x minus 1. And then we would add 3 to both sides of my equal sign. So that would give me y is equal to -x plus 2. And that would be the slope-intercept form of the line. So again, always go to point slope form first, and then change that form to whatever other form you're looking for. Okay, let's go to number 3. Write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form of the line that passes through the point -2, 1, and is perpendicular to this line right here. So now remember, I told you, you need two things to be able to come up with the equation of a line. A point, which we have, and you need the slope. Now, how are we going to figure out the slope of this line that I'm trying to come up with? Well, we know it's perpendicular to this line, which means that their slopes are, this is from last section, opposite reciprocals. So what I have to do is I have to find the slope of this line, find its opposite reciprocal, and that will be the slope that I need to answer the question. So let's find the slope of this line. Now remember, you could put this into slope-intercept form if you wanted to, like we did in the last section. Or remember, I gave you a little shortcut. Since this is in standard form, I can find the slope by doing negative a over b. So a is 2, so negative a would be negative 2 over b is negative 1. So it's negative a over b. So you can see that that's 2. Or again, you can put it in slope-intercept form if you don't like that way. So now, again, the line that I'm trying to come up with is perpendicular to this line, which means its slope isn't 2, its slope would be the opposite reciprocal of 2. And what would the opposite reciprocal of 2 over 1 be? It would be negative 1 over 2. So now I have the two things that I need to write the equation of my line. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So now remember, what we're going to do is we're going to go to point slope form first, and then we're going to change that to slope-intercept form. So it would be y minus 1, which is the y of the point, is equal to negative 1/2 the slope times x minus negative 2, which again we know is really x plus 2. So again, we have to change this to slope-intercept form, so I'm going to first distribute. So that's going to be negative 1/2 x, and then negative 1/2 times 2 is negative 1. Now I'm going to get the y alone by adding 1 to both sides. So I'm going to get y is equal to negative 1/2 x plus 0. And no, you don't have to write the plus 0 if you don't want to. But there is the equation of the line that passes through this point and is perpendicular to this line. All right, I'm going to turn the page and we're going to do a part 2 of this video.